On a Monday morning in January 1979, Brenda Spencer started shooting from her house into the primary school across the street, killing 2 adults and injuring 8 children and a policeman. When asked why she was shooting, Brenda declared, "I don't like Mondays." 26 years later, Brenda Spencer is entitled to parole. We were granted exclusive access to her hearing and discovered that behind the eerie detachment of her original statement are now dark allegations about a seemingly ordinary suburban family.
Witnesses say a lone gunman walked onto the campus at Stockton's Cleveland Elementary School and opened fire with a machine gun. At the time, 400 to 500 first, second, and third graders were playing during their lunch period. When the rampage was over, 5 students lay dead, a teacher, and more than 30 students were injured, more than half of them critically. One bystander said it sounded like a gun battle. Then suddenly this car was ablaze and the suspect was dead from a self-inflicted bullet wound to the head.
Yeah, we should be good to go. I've got my notes pulled up over here, what little bit they are for it.
Yeah, there was a lot. I did. Well, I'm done with research. I found a fucking documentary on Tubi. About it was called "I Don't Like Mondays," and it actually, I mean, there was like, dude, her dad is fucking weird. Like, I don't like the way that the documentary was. It really tried to put her off as, more the victim than I think she really was in the whole ordeal. But I mean, they get more into it. But speaking of things I watched, man, I watched the new Beavis and Butthead season. Have you seen that yet?
No.
It's actually really, really fucking good, dude. Um, they they matured them just a little bit, and there's still music videos, but they also use like TikTok videos and stuff now, and they did really, really good. Van Driesen wears one of those drug rug sweaters, but they still look the same. They're still the same Beavis and Butthead. And Butthead's a little bit more like morose, but
Hmm.
it's they did really, really good with it, man.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of a difference in the Beavis and Butthead do the universe or whatever the heck that was.
Yeah, yeah, and those like alternate universe Beavis and Buttheads, like they're one of like the last episode of the season. It's like, we like this one where they actually grew up, and here we'll show you, and it's like an episode of like middle-aged Beavis and Butthead. They're pretty much the same.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, they had to grow up a little bit. I mean, with all the TikTok
a
stuff
little.
that you get on there, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
yeah,
just a
it's
little.
good that the next generation gets a little taste of, what we had.
Yeah, yeah, and it didn't get stagnant, and they brought it into the modern time really good. You don't see them on any cell phones because they're too stupid, but there are cell phones around. You know, but yeah, there's hipsters in it and shit. They did fucking awesome with it. Uh, but yeah, that's my new thing for the week. Hopefully, after we're done here tonight, I'm gonna watch the new Lord of the Rings thing. There's 2 episodes of it out. Came out today. I'll try to get through them.
He just faded out on me for some reason. I don't know if he reached for something or what.
I did. I moved for a second.
Yeah, you got to remember, bro. You got to caress that microphone.
Well, I mean,
You
it
speak.
hasn't paid me yet.
Got to whisper sweet nothings in its ear.
Anybody want their dick sucked by a towel? When I'm on heroin, I don't care about anything. Stoner's Point podcast is the use of heroin.
No, but we're all for the legalization of prostitution, though.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm for the legalization of heroin, just not the use of.
At least by those that are underage or prone to any kind of habitual habits forming tendencies. There, you might want to steer clear.
If you're dying of cancer, heroin might be the way. Other than that, there's better ways to enjoy your day. Some of them involve drugs, but none of them None of them really involve hair.
Just remember everything in moderation.
Well, I think Aldous Huxley said it best. The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom.
Well, you never know where your limits are until you push them.
That's true. That's true. And speaking of pushing limits, we are going to be talking about what I thought was actually two shootings at the same school. Actually turned out to be two shootings at different schools with the same name. Um, but I mean, they're interesting in of themselves. One of them is it's kind of iconic. I don't, had you ever heard about the first one, Mike?
Yeah, it comes up when you start reading into the different shootings and stuff. I think simply because she was one of the first female shooters and one of the
Well, she was
few
also
female shooters around
she
that.
was the first school shooter.
Yeah, the very first actual school shooting that's a non-college.
Yeah, yeah. And like there was this. A lot of people didn't like it, I guess, but I actually always loved it. But Bob Geldof and the Boomtown Rats did a song called "I Don't Like Mondays," based on her.
Yeah, I'd never heard the song before, but
Yeah, I sent it to you the other day, didn't I?
I think so. But me, squirrel moments and modern technology.
Oh, you mean touching a picture with your finger?
If the traveling bard doesn't come around with his lute and start singing it from the tree branches, I probably haven't heard it. You know me, man. I'm stuck in the caveman days.
It's a coin to your co-host.
Yeah, she was what 16 years old with a freaking little tiny 22.
Yeah. So the fucking thing is, all right. So as if everybody figured out, we're going to be talking about the Cleveland elementary school shootings today. Part of an overall longer series on Rampage mass shootings. Uh, yep, this will be your mini-sode number 3.
Also,
Yeah.
the one
So
that
what
shows some
happened was
inclusivity because now we're talking
she
about a
asked
woman.
her dad. She asked her dad for Christmas, right? She'd asked for her dad to give her a radio. She wanted a radio, and he found out that like she had been like the counselor had called her mom and told her mom that she thinks that her daughter was suicidal, and he gets wind of this, so he gets her a gun for Christmas.
Yeah, that was
Um,
kind of fucked up, wasn't it? Hey, you want to off yourself? Here, let me help.
they were already living. There was already some fucked shit going on there. They lived in the house. It was just him and her, and they slept together on the same mattress in like dirty old mattress on a. They had barely any furniture in the house. They basically, there are allegations of sexual abuse. Um, and haven't actually seen an interview with her dad. I can't rule it out. I didn't get a look at him and think that's a fine upstanding man right there. I don't get that image. And her mother also was like she knew something was wrong, but she never really pressed the matter. So yeah,
I don't know, man. I saw an interview from her from back in. She said she was on all kinds of drugs at the time, and
yeah. There's one interview she did when she had kind of like a mullet.
yeah,
She had like the best. She had the mullet from oh god, what was that
iconic
kid's
80s
name?
style, bro.
Yeah, like
Joe Dirt style, man.
it was like a Joe Dirt mullet, but I mean it was the king of all mullets. And she was like, yeah, she said she was like had been drinking whiskey and smoking pot with PCP in it, and she started hallucinating. And well, thing is though, they did a toxicology on her when they arrested her for the shooting we're going to get into eventually, I promise. And she came back clean. Like she had no drugs in her system. Hadn't been drinking. I think she was pretty well aware of what she was doing. We'll get it later to like her possible motives and shit like that. Um, I think I'm going to title this one The Cleveland School Elementary shooting, the mother of all Mondays, or
Yeah,
maybe
there we
the
go.
word,
Yeah.
or someone's got a case of the Mondays. That might be it. Yeah. So January 29th, 1979, Cleveland Elementary School in San Diego. 16-year-old Brenda Spencer uh, basically takes her gun, well 22 rifle, and starts shooting across the street at the school. Like she lived directly across the street from like the entrance to the school, and all the kids and their parents were like lined up at the gate waiting for the principal to come unlock the gate. And when that happened, they're all kind of bottlenecked there. So she just starts firing off shots. Um, she She injured 8 children. The first one she hit was a 9-year-old Cam Miller, and the reason she went after him she went after him first was he was wearing her favorite color, blue. Um, she shot and killed the principal as they were trying to like help. She killed a janitor, Mike Suchar, as he was trying to save a kid. Um, she ended up firing 36 times and herself in the house. And while it was all going on, a reporter from the San Diego Tribune had started like randomly like kind of drunk dialing all the phone numbers in that neighborhood to try to find her house. And when that reporter finally got hold of her, she told the reporter that she had shot at the school children and the adults because, quote, "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." She also told the negotiators that the ones she had shot were easy targets and that she was going to come out shooting. And these statements come up all the time. Get paroled or whatnot, which has come up a few times. They always bring up, "Hey, you remember when you said you killed these people because you didn't like Mondays?" And it's always like, "Oh,
And
oh
she's
yeah,
all like, no, no, no. They were commando types. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what they
yeah."
were. They were
She
commandos
tried
coming
to.
out of the
That was
weeds.
one time she tried. That was one thing she tried. But like I said, that's also during that same interview where she claimed she was high on every drug known to man, and she had no drugs known to man in her system.
Yeah.
Um, so later on, she blamed abuse and that she was like trying to kill herself. And my argument is, well, you were pointing the gun the wrong fucking way. Uh,
Right.
that's not how that works. But she also was she was a child who was likely being sexually abused, had been through some shit. Um, she had kind of a rough go of it, and she was clearly depressed and suicidal. So she wasn't in her right frame of mind. So I mean, there's a little bit, yeah. It's worth considering on some things. Ultimately, though, the way they ended up getting her out of the house was they kind of like dangled some Burger King. Like they promised her some Burger King. She was like, "Oh, okay." When they
Yeah.
thing, and they were like, but she didn't even appear to be intoxicated. Dude, I believe that she was stone cold sober.
Yeah. When
She
I
was
seen when they
having
were
a
walking
great.
her out to the house, she seemed to be fairly stable and aware of
Yeah,
her surroundings.
to me she just kind of looked like an emo kid,
Yeah,
you
you're
know.
fading out there.
Yeah, to me she just looked like an emo kid,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were I was documentary I was watching. They're talking about like, just look at her, that stringy red hair. She's got this dead look in her face. It's like, well, she's probably in a little bit of shock. Like she just killed a couple people and shot a bunch of kids. Like she's going through some shit. Something's going on. But the DA was like, "Look at those. That just looks. She just looks insane. She just looks. We just can't ever let her out. She just looks crazy. Look at those eyes. She sounded like Dr. Loomis talking about Mike Myers on Halloween. You know, like and it wasn't. She was just like this kind of. She was a disturbed 16-year-old girl who really just needed help, and she didn't get help before she started shooting at people. But I mean,
She damn sure didn't get no help afterwards either. Apparently, her trial was an in and out kind of a thing. Apparently, during the interviews, they just handed her a piece of paper saying, "Here, sign this" or something along those lines, and it was basically her admitting guilt to first-degree murder.
Yeah, cops are good for that shit.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to get
Scared little
into
teenage girl. Hey, you sign this, everything will be all right.
we'll have to get into the West Memphis 3 one day.
But yeah, it was, and now she's in there for her entire freaking life.
Well, they
From
gave her
16 years
25.
old, 25, yeah, 25 to life for a fucking 16-year-old dude.
But that being said, she wasn't a 16-year-old who stole a car. She was a 16-year-old who shot children and killed 2 adults.
Yeah,
Um,
which means it should
Now,
be a little more serious. And yeah, granted, that's way more serious of a crime, but you're still talking about a 16-year-old.
yeah, they should like she was charged as an adult, but because of her age, she avoided the death penalty. Had she been a couple years older, they would have put her out. But
Yeah. So
yeah,
let's not care about her age for the original sentence, but let's do care about her age when it comes to actually executing the sentence.
yeah, like and her should she have been put away? I think she should have been definitely hospitalized, Um maybe put away there, as a part of that, maybe like a prison hospital type thing, a mental institute. Hell, that's where fucking Charles Manson finished out his sentence with a fucking prison. And yeah, so I think they should have done that rather than put her in prison. She ended up developing epilepsy. So she started getting medicated case for that. She got a job working in the prison, working on like radios and shit, electronic equipment. Um, her all her parole things. Every time she goes parole, she gets put down for it. And she's tried every story under the sun, you know. To she tried the drug thing, she tried the sex abuse thing, but then she ended up like she scratched the words courage and pride into her own skin. But she said that during her parole hearing, she's like, "Oh, that's not what it says." She's like, it says unforgiven and alone." And it's like, she's still a 16-year-old emo kid, you know. it's it's what's going on here. And she fucking she needed help. Now she'll be an old woman for too long. Shit. But still, man, like rather than locked her up, they should have put her away and maybe got her some help. She might have been able to come out of it okay. Um, but yeah. Also, did you hear about her dad remarrying?
No, I didn't
So
look
while she was locked
into her
up,
actual family very much, except for
while
the
she was
beginning
locked
of it.
up, she had a 17-year-old cellmate, right? And this cellmate gets out and meets up with her dad, and then her dad gets this cellmate of hers pregnant, and then they have to get married. And yeah, so that just a little thing on her dad. When we were talking about like I can't rule it out. Well, that's one of the things I can't rule it out. And the girl he apparently like that her was her old cellmate like looked apparently like a lot like her, like to the point that a detective after his, her cellmate moved in with her dad, a detective like called the DA saying, "What the hell is Brenda doing out?" And then they were like, "Oh no, that's not Brenda." But I mean, hell, the detective on the case was like, "Hey, that's why is she out? Why is she out now?"
Well, that's weird as fuck.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, dude, like that, and I didn't see it until I watched that documentary, and I was like, "Shit, that is fucking crazy."
that is definitely crazy. Holy shit! First off, you want to get your daughter killed by buying her a rifle when you think she's suicidal, and now you want to marry her. What?
Yeah, but they tried like media tried to make it look like look at her. She's a psychopath. She's crazy. She's insane. Just look at that stringy red hair and that pale skin. It's like, okay, so she's a ginger.
There was
you know?
definitely something off. I mean, you don't
Yeah,
just
but
point a rifle out the window and start pulling the trigger just because as she said, it was a Monday.
she kind of has that autistic look, like just a little bit autistic. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they tested her or whatnot and found out she was like somewhere on the spectrum.
Isn't
Just because
everybody nowadays?
well, to a certain extent, I guess, but she has a lot. I bet she had a lot of the fucking markers for it because she has that kind of affect when they're talking. You know, she has that kind of affect about her.
Yeah, she definitely does. I watched that interview for her when she was trying to blame it all on the PCP, and that she really feels guilty, that she hopes she didn't scar anybody for life, and they were actually the victims were able to get on with their lives and make something of it. And yeah, I didn't buy none of that really.
No, I don't believe she actually has any like real remorse for it. I think she has remorse for her own life that she kind of lost, but at the same time, she's been in prison now longer than she's been out of prison.
Yeah, I
You
actually feel
know,
bad about that. I mean, it's
yeah, and
for a 16-year-old to do something as even as horrible that was. I mean, she's definitely been incarcerated long enough, and unless we can find some other reason that she is actually a danger to society.
yeah, and that's a lot of people like the DA and all that on that documentary were harping on the fact that she's still a danger to society. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at her, and this was in like 2009, I think. I'm sitting
Yeah,
there looking at her, I'm like, she might be, but what you have nothing to base that on. There was that one thing, and it was a horrible thing, but it was one event,
and hell,
and
now and she just came up last month for her last parole, and now it's going to be another 3 years before she can come up again because they said, all right, we're going to do it now, but it's a 3 year for if you want to take this hearing now, you got to wait 3 years for your next one. And they denied her. So it'll be another 3 years before she has another chance. And to look
yeah,
at her now, there's no way that woman is a danger to anybody but herself.
no, man, and see, and with treatment, like I feel like they could let her out with like an ankle monitor or some shit and like mandatory treatment that she has to go see a psychiatrist or whatever. Like there are things they could do to kind of keep an eye on it. I don't think she should be locked up the rest of her life.
Yeah, I
Um,
think they should have done that back in the 90s after she actually spent 20 years in there. I mean, come on.
yeah, yeah. But there was people on the documentary like, well, if they let her out, I'm a I'm gonna go find my guns and get them together and load them up, and I'm gonna just do what I got to do and carry them around with me. It's like, well, dude, if you're that fucking scared, move. Like,
Well, I mean, if you're that scared, carry your gun. And if she comes
or
lunging
not,
at you,
yeah.
shoot her ass. Whatever. But
What do you?
don't stop her from living her life because you're scared to live yours.
Yeah, it's like I understand everybody lost somebody, during it. Hell, we might have. I doubt it. Well, at least at this point, I'm sure we don't. But there might be listeners that have family members or something that was affected by it.
Oh
But
yeah, and in no way am I saying that it was justified and she
yeah,
should have been let go. I'm just saying that I think she spent more than the 25 years that she's supposed to have spent. And I know it said to life, but come on, we're talking about a 16-year-old that did something stupid.
yeah. I
For
mean, it
we
can't
don't
be
know
taken
why,
back,
but even if
but
she did
uh,
just jump up and say "fuck it," I'm going to kill people today. That was something stupid teenage bullshit.
that was kind of what it was. I feel like I don't
Yeah,
think that I don't think I don't like Mondays was really a reason. I don't. I think she said that because she didn't have a reason,
she was
and
just
she was
being a
just trying to
smart
be a
ass.
flip. Exactly. She was a little goth kid being a smartass.
Yeah, so I mean, she did something horrible, and yes, she should have been put in some kind of incarceration. And hopefully, she got mental health and all that as well.
Well, the prison's mental health system ain't great.
No, it's not, but I mean, talking to somebody is better than absolutely nothing.
Agreed, agreed. And they do actually have, and it doesn't say it. I at least not I could find. It doesn't say that she's getting any kind of like treatment for like mental health or whatnot. But she is receiving medication for her epilepsy and her depression.
Yeah, so
But that's it. You know.
but yeah,
But yeah,
I just say I think a kid spent enough time. She's actually an old woman now, so let her at least have some sort of
yeah.
freedom
Let her
before
have.
she dies.
There's there's
She's done enough, I
pedophiles that
think.
get out in less time. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's people who there's pedophiles that murdered multiple children that did less time than her. It's happened.
Yeah, I'm not taking
Um,
away from anybody's pain or anything like that, but I
no,
think
no.
I think she's paid for it.
Yeah, like give her a chance to come out and at least maybe die in the sunshine a little.
Yeah.
Uh, but well, that's Brenda Ann Spencer and the Grover Cleveland Elementary School shooting of 1979 in San Diego, and Mike, what you got on the 1989 one?
Yeah, 1989. This one was a little bit farther north, up in
Yeah.
Stockton, California, but it does have the same name instead of Grover, Cleveland. This is Cleveland Elementary. It's only about 200 miles north, but close enough. But yeah, this was a fairly strange one, and it has a couple of interesting little side notes to it. That until the 90s, until 1999, when Columbine actually happened, as sad as that is, this one that we're getting ready to talk about had the highest number of fatalities and injuries of the time. It is still, well, it can't be beaten now, the highest of the 80s. Sadly, there were more than one.
Yeah,
but
there were many.
But yeah, this fellow, what was his daggone name? Patrick Purdy? Yeah, Patrick Purdy. It's a 24-year-old, I think, when he did this, if I'm remembering right. I can't scroll down fast enough here. But yeah.
You're scrolling?
Yeah, man, trying to join in with the latest generation here.
Damn. When he says scrolling, he's actually got a paper scroll.
Yeah.
Rolling back, yeah. He's moved out of the papyrus, though. So.
Hey, at least I used the right term this time, It's the same thing.
Samesies.
Yeah, but this guy, let's just say that, let's back up and let you know who we're dealing with here. Yeah, he was a 24-year-old. He was kind of a drifter around town. He really didn't have much of a background, no friends or family really to speak of too much. He did learn how to do some welding, but he had trouble finding a job as a fabricator or even as general labor in some of these shops and stuff. Never really had a job to the point where anybody really knew him all that much. Excuse me. His father.
He kind of came from fuck ups and just remained so. He just carried that curse along.
Yeah, his dad was in the Army, never really made anything of himself. And him and his mother, his father and mother, got up with file for divorce after husband threatened to kill her with a firearm. And then they moved.
When he was like 16 or 17, his dad actually was killed. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see something in it. I was trying to.
Yeah, he made himself into roadkill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, what was this here? Yeah, the family filed a wrongful suit death for that after being struck by a car in '81. Tried to get $600,000 in damage, but it got dismissed. Yeah, that's where that was. But yeah, it was. They'd gotten separated, and then after all that crap, apparently the father had tried to sue for custody, and actually got. What the hell? Patrick's got custody of Patrick. I'm looking at different names. I'm trying to make sure I get the actual names in the right spot. I ain't trying to make sure we know who the mom and dad is, because that's not who we're talking about here. But yeah, Patrick got put in custody of his father, which, who was kind of an ass apparently for, threatening to kill the mom and his wife with a gun.
With a gun.
Yeah. So yeah, not the kind of person that you want to actually put a kid into service of their
and he actually went to the Cleveland Elementary School in Stockton from kindergarten up through second grade.
Yeah, and lived right down the road back when they were a kid.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually lashed out at his mom at one time. After he had called fucking child services to because he was trying to say he was abusing him. He actually struck his mom, got banned out of the house, lived on the streets before being placed into foster care, and then got put back in custody of his father. And then while he was in school, he got hooked on alcohol and drugs. And then his father got hit by the car, and that incident happened when they lost the suit because apparently they found out it was some funny business there. Yeah, he was homeless after that, and he got put back into foster care, and then he got out of that, and he was trying to make his own little kind of deal. Something about he got locked up when he was a kid when he was for carrying BB guns and possession of marijuana
when he was 12, and when he was let's see, it was 1982, so he was like 16 or 17. He got busted for pot, and the next year he got busted for illegal weapon and stolen property.
Yeah, so you're talking about your basic hood rat type person.
Yeah, and then the next year, dude, every year, the next year he's in an armed robbery. He does 32 days in jail for armed robbery. What the fuck is with that, dude?
Right? The last person we talked to just 10 years ago was still in prison for shooting people, and now he goes in with an armed robbery, and he gets 32 days. And he was arrested for firing a weapon in public and shooting trees. That's all. And then attempted suicide while he was locked up. There's something in here about him being a white supremacist that never came up in any of the actual documentaries I watched during the day. But
so he was carrying he had a book when he was arrested in the late 80s. He was like in some like national forest or whatever. El Dorado National Forest. He had a book about white supremacist group, Aryan Nations. And he told the sheriff that it was his duty to help the suppressed and overthrow the suppressor.
Yeah.
So, and if you look, I mean, he I don't know. He did a little bit of time in and out of prison and whatnot. He could have been involved in Aryan Nation.
It could have been. So this is the only mention of it is in this write up here that I have found of that, and and this guy's got a few little videos and documentary things made up of him, and the vast majority say there is no motive known at all, though it is suspected to be racial. Because of one offhand comment that he made at one job saying that, at college,
wasn't just that
there were too many Asians.
Yeah, and those were who all his victims were Asian, except for himself.
Well, it just happened to be in a school that had a high percentage of Asians.
A bunch of refugees from like Southeast Asia
had
been put there. And
and it was just happened to be the closest school to him. So, but let's say that he chose that because he did have that thing. I mean, that did come up quite a few times, and that he had mentioned that he didn't like the fact there were so many Asians around taking jobs and stuff. Yeah, even though he couldn't stand even doing the menial jobs that they were doing.
What job?
So, they definitely ain't taking his. He was giving them away. So that was the kind of a person that we're dealing with. Somebody that couldn't even make a friend at work because he couldn't stay at work. And he didn't really have that great of a home life. So, he turned into a basic hood rat. And I don't mean that as a racial term. I mean that like I was when I was a teen, completely unguided, going out doing stupid shit just because nobody can tell you can't. And,
in 88, he wrote about himself.
Yeah, I lost
you. He said, "Hey, am I back?"
Yeah, you're back there.
All right. So he, in like a hotel notepad in '88, he wrote a note about himself saying, "I'm so dumb. I'm dumber than a sixth grader. My mother and father were dumb." Like, like this guy.
Well, at least he knew himself.
Already.
That's about who we're talking about here. Somebody just had no freaking direction in life, couldn't pull himself up and make anything. So looked like he blamed everybody else for his own problems instead of looking inward. And what we got as a result is in 1989, September 14th, he shot up a no, it was the 14th. He shot up his former workplace. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
no,
I
this
got
is
you.
after the shooting in Louisville. Sorry. And this is who is pretty much gave him the idea. Apparently, some guy shot up a workplace with an AK, killing 8 people and injuring 12 others, and then
I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, this was on here is that he saw this, and this is what gave him the idea to do it. And then on the 17th,
Oh yeah, it was inspired by Purdy.
this guy jumps into his little station wagon, somehow fills it up full of fireworks, pulls it up in front of the school, and lights it on fire. Which causes it to explode slightly during this event, and he goes up into the school with his Type 56S rifle, which is an AK-47 clone, and he had a pistol, and of course he set his car on fire, and he used that as a diversionary tactic so that people would start paying attention to that if he got busy. He fired off was 106 rounds in just about 3 minutes. It was 3 full mag dumps and a partial 4th mag. And he killed 5 people there, then himself injured 32 more. So total deaths and injuries on this was 38. But man, that is again, this guy's just praying and spraying with an automatic rifle, a semi-automatic. This is not a military deal.
He's out like on the playground.
Yeah, there were some reports saying up to 300 kids were out there playing at the time when he started spraying into the crowd. And this thing had freedom, victory, and Hezbollah engraved into the rifle. He had a jacket that had PLO and Libya and Death to the Great Satan on the jacket. He had a flag with him.
He misspelled Satan, by the way.
Yeah, Satin. He had a flag that had V for victory, F for freedom, and a bunch of other symbols all over it. I said, this guy really didn't know what ideology he was wanting to follow. He just grabbed a bunch of stuff and
Libya,
where we're going.
Death. I'm dumb.
Yeah,
I'm dumber than a 6th grader. My parents were dumb. I got a purry mouth.
Apparently the guy never turned on the TV and listened to one story so he could at least go one direction. Nope, this guy shotgunned all his, out there.
He had an exploding car, and that's weird. Like he sat there and lit the car on fire, and then just like walked to the playground, and it's like, what was the purpose of this? Like if you had parked the car around back with like a timer on it to set off while you come around the front or something like that, and everybody looks that way, but everybody's looking the way you're coming. Because, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you diverting from?
Yeah, I don't know if it was something like maybe to make people think there was a second attack or to whatever there. But I mean, it was one of his better ideas, honestly. If he'd have got away from it, but he was still close to the vehicle when he was shooting.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah,
you can't. A diversionary tactic points everybody away from you.
Yeah. Not more look at me. Yeah, more Meeseeks action there. But yeah, he finally, after he run out of his last magazine, he pulled out his pistol and shot himself. And nobody really knows why he did it, but racial hatred is the main culprit, just because of a few little details of his past. But he left no notes to say this is what I'm doing or anything like that. He just pulled up at the school, set his car on fire, and started shooting kids for some strange freaking reason.
It's fucking nuts, man.
It's like, Asians are taking my jobs. Let's take it out on the kids. What?
Visitor that came to the school after the shooting?
A visitor after the shooting? No.
Yeah, so immediately following the shooting, Michael Jackson made a short visit to the school and met with some of the children affected by the event.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Yeah, that's exactly what those kids need. Somebody needs to talk to those kids a little bit more.
Jackson should do it.
Man, yeah. That's not good. I thought the story was bad enough, but Michael Jackson paying a visit afterwards, yeah.
Yeah. And then Janet Jackson did a song about it called They Didn't Make.
Well, Janet can do whatever she wants to.
But she didn't yeah, she there's no allegations out about, Janet. They didn't, be like Jared from Subway going to see the kids.
I mean, hell, if you
But
saw
yeah. But he ain't got them sandwiches no more.
and yeah, this attack come out with one lasting thing that I really couldn't stand. And we're still fighting it today. California actually put out their first assault weapons ban after this, to ban any such military style rifle, trying to do it without banning sporting type rifles. And yeah, it kind of,
Well, they banned importation of assault weapons. Yeah.
yeah, they
And
issued a
and
rule
after
lacking, citing the lack of sporting purpose to ban the importation of it, because they wanted to ban the assault weapons without banning people's shotguns and rifles that they go out to shoot targets and
right.
So yeah, they did
Hunting
it
and
for
whatnot.
everything else. They added it on the import for the lack of a sporting purpose for any of these types of weapons. Put a bunch of them on the list, and yeah, it was pretty rough. And then in '89, in July, the Bush administration made the import ban permanent.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, in '94 they did another one, the federal assault weapons ban. No, that was, yeah, the federal assault weapons ban came in afterwards, and yeah, and Clinton signed another order to ban importation of most firearms
Well,
and ammunition from China.
the federal assault weapons ban like expired though.
Yeah, it expired in 2004. And a quick little side note on that, they say that the assault weapons ban was working to cut down the number of shootings. There's a little paper trail that lets you know that it had absolutely no effect.
I mean, I think our next episode show that it had
It lost you.
our next episodes will show that they had absolutely no effect.
Yeah,
Um,
pretty much.
so I thought about backtracking a little bit and doing Richard Speck, and I'm like, nah, we're trying to cover some of the main ones that have kind of shaped what mass shooters are today. Like the molds.
Yeah, which is why I didn't say we needed to skip these. We realized that they were from different schools instead of having that nice little punch, like two in the same school. Man, that's cool.
Yeah, but
No,
they're
but they
very
both,
effective and
yeah, they both
yeah,
have their own story to tell in the history of it. One being the first school shooting and one of the few female shooters to do something along that level, and this one being the at the time the most deadly and injurious, that actually resulted in some of the weapons laws that we are still fighting today, or fighting for, depending on which side of the aisle you're sitting on this one.
so I think our next one, ready to jump into Columbine.
Yeah, let's get into some of the big ones that really make an impact on people's hearts. Columbine is a good one to get into there.
Yeah, that's gonna be that's it'll be put out as a mini-sode, but I doubt it will be a mini-sode. It'll just be an episode.
Yeah, that one's probably going to go a little long. And yeah, we're going to try not to do it disservice, but yeah, there are going to be some details that get glossed over just to keep the time short. Remember that these are just to highlight the details that we are not going to be able to cover in the main episode over this entire topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I guess yeah. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Amazon Music, Audible. Find us on Patreon, where we also have a bonus tier. If you're listening to this before the 6th of September, then you are a patron. Patreon. You're a
Patreon, I
guy
think.
or a
Yeah,
girl who has thrown us money to hear it in advance. But this will be public afterwards, But yeah, so we have bonus material. We have you get early releases. You can chat with us. You can ask us questions. Of course, you can also ask us questions by emailing us at stonerspointpod@gmail.com. I think oh yeah, we're also on Acast, and I think I covered all the pluggables there.
Yeah,
Our
we're
intro
working
music.
on getting into YouTube as well. So you'll be able to find us and leave comments over there anytime. There will be a link coming up. I don't know if it'll be now or sometime in the very near future for our Discord. So if you have anything that you really want to share, but you're worried about the government wanting to, or some other high valued entity trying to censor or limit what you can speak about, our Discord has no such thing. But I do ask that you limit any kind of outright racial comments to yourself. And remember, we're all human, so let's at least try to act that way when we're conversing with each other.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely that. And if you like our intro music, check out Wickless Sky. I'll post a link to his YouTube channel here in the notes. And yeah, I guess
Absolutely.
that's
And
it for
don't listen
today.
to it on a little itty bitty phone speaker. I'm telling you, that little tiny thing does not do that stuff justice.
Yeah,
Put it on a speaker,
yeah.
put it on something with a real speaker to it. Yeah, that guy's got some talent.
He really does, man. He's like multifaceted too. He does like dubstep. He does like rap. Like, granted, like all of his spoken word stuff that I have found has been in Serbian, but it's still pretty dope. Um, but yeah, he does rock. He does like a lot of things. I actually found him years ago when I watched the probably the most horrifying movie of all time, Serbian film. Um, yeah, and if any of our listeners out there have heard that, I'm thinking of starting a support group for people who have been traumatized by that movie. And you could just email us at stonerspointpod@gmail.com. And until then, fuck around and find out.